that it didn't work. So I have some doubts whether you can put mechanisms in place. You can put them in place. Whether they're going to have any lasting effect, I doubt. Because at the end of the day, there is something, if we quote Darwin, the survival of the fittest, and something like people don't want to be equal, and some people, even if you give them the same amount of money when they're born, some will have a lot more and some will be poor. So inequality is a part of human nature. And I think constantly trying to counteract that is perhaps, it might work for some time, but it's not really going to, work for a long time. That was the first comment. The second and final, because we want to have an argument. So the second and final comment is that if you're looking for unmet diseases and actually the problems of the third world, then let's not blame the pharmaceutical industry alone, because the easiest way to save most lives is actually that most people die from cholera, and the only thing that they would need is actually a clean supply of water.
Right, so it's not socialism. This is Adam Smith, actually, because it's based on competition. I mean, the socialists, the push and pull models, the push model is as you say, socialist, but PPPs are actually working quite well, run by ex-pharma executives. So, one of the arguments for why the socialist thing didn't work was they didn't, in the academic sector, people are still not good enough at killing projects which are no good. There's just too much, entrenched interest. It's being able to kill things that don't work that's a critical thing, and that requires strong management. And I would argue that in these interesting institutes, like the Sanger Institute, which are kind of halfway between, with a robust, directed operational management, things get killed. And, the PPPs, they're a bit more commercial than that, but they're not that far away. But anyway, that's the push model. The prize model is a pull model. It's a reward, and the only difference is you're rewarding those who are successful with money directly, rather than the right to sell and make money. There's not really that much difference. It's a capitalist model. Now, can you design it and can you make it stick? That's another interesting question. One of the, we have had a lot of discussions with, a lot of commercials about this. One of the fears is that governments just wouldn't stick to their, you'd have to set this thing up so that the prize model, that it couldn't be raided like the pension funds, for example, by the governments. It would have to be static and predictable for a long period of time, because the industries obviously have to make commitments and investments on the basis of how much was available at a certain time in the future. So there are risks like that. But it's an interesting mechanism.
I guess my problem is that what you're trying to do is change the metrics. So rather than letting the market work, and I know that is not quite true for the pharmaceutical industry, because the patients...
There is a metric, because the NHS says, are we going to pay for this or not? Now, maybe the NHS is a small part of the market, but there's some of this goes on in the US, where the insurance companies will say, do we want to pay for this at this rate or not? US prices are very high by comparison, but there's already things in place.
No, I understand that, and I know that the patient ultimately is a consumer, but he or she is not the customer, because they're not able to decide which drugs they're going to take. But it's actually the doctor that prescribes it. I know all that. But if I give you a comparison and said there's something called the Red Dot Award, which I'm sure you've heard of, for design. So it goes from anything that's designed, right, for chairs, for the newest watches, whatever, and they get a prize. Now, if this prize would be similar to your prize, that the people who are actually selling these Red Dot awarded things are actually getting a lot of money for the prize, so they can actually sell it cheaper. Well, does that mean that more people are going to buy it because it's got a Red Dot award, or is it actually better to actually have those things out in the market and let the market decide? I don't know.
Okay, I think we should go on to the question at the back, please, or comment.
Just some thoughts on sponsorship bias. Now, I think it's with discussion with industry. I think it was always possible to avoid any sponsorship bias, because these trials were conducted on the basis of an agreement that was drawn up between us beforehand, making it very clear that our unit had total scientific control of the study, that we were as a unit, were responsible for all aspects of data management, analysis of results, and the reporting and the publication of results. And I'm glad to say that in the great majority of cases, industry were very happy to go along with this sort of arrangement because the trial would be seen to be being objectively conducted. And that's to the benefit of both the scientists and the sponsors.
Thank you. Stuart, do you want to come back on that?
I'm very pleased to hear that. I think this highlights the issue that sponsorship bias varies according to the way trials are carried out and the degree to which individual trials can be funded by industry alone, and if other funders are involved and other contracts are put in place where there's an obligation to publish everything, you can avoid a lot of the problems that I've talked about. The trouble is, this is not happening in a significant enough cases for